country can't get no worse. This country can't get no worse.
It can't.
Well, it is every day. It is every day.
It's like a rubber band around it now. Me and this gentleman over here have been talking about the last few days. It's like a rubber band around it. And I can't believe it hasn't exploded yet.
Well,
That's why I'm going to, I'm going to go I got to start at Tyson Monday morning.
Did you see that on the news where Elon Musk, it finally broke on CNN, was the first ones that broke it, where, he's in control of the big buttons.
Yeah.
He's in control of the satellite stuff, the same thing as the military or some of these other big governments and stuff.
You got to read it online, though. I've read that stuff.
But he was asked by Putin to shut down all the social media platform over in Ukraine. That way it would stifle Ukraine, and that way the Ukrainian army would know heads from tails towards what was going on. And he done that. He pulled the plug on the Ukrainians. Would that not be an act of treason?
I agree. Him and Bill Gates, they need to be put in front of a firing squad right now. Get rid of them.
How come our government has allowed for this to come into our lives and basically ruin our lives? Instead of helping us, it's actually hurt a lot of people, you know it?
Oh, well, they want us all, they want you to be like these other third world countries. They want you to be, you got to be filthy rich or dirt poor. That's the way they want you.
Yep.
They don't want the dollar bill no more.
Well, according to Putin, the free world pertaining to our republic, as far as it being a Democrat country, is just as corrupt as a communist country, and in lots of ways, it's not only as bad, but in lots of ways it's worse. You know why? Because whenever you go to a communist country, you know what to expect. You know if you don't walk the freaking line, they liable to put a bullet in you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or throw you in a jail like over in Turkey or somewhere, right? To where over here they'll preach, justice for all, and all for one and one for all, and justice for all, and come to America, come to America. If the truth be known, the only thing that has saved us, that has kept us alive, it hasn't been the labor force, because the labor force went down the tubes whenever all these big retailers started going to other parts of the country towards getting their 32-inch TVs. You know what's been keeping us alive? The immigration force. The people that's coming over here that does have money, that does have big pockets, and they translate their money from whatever currency that they got over to American money.
It's just like you got these people, got the jewelry in the middle, and in the jewelry store, they've been in here 2 years right next to good people, right next to the popcorn place. They don't do nothing, but they got pocketfuls of money,
Some of them come over here, they're associated with the oil companies and oil industries over there in the Middle East, and they got money to freaking burn, man.
Yeah.
But how about General Motors and Ford and Chrysler going to go on a major strike at 12 o'clock tonight?
Is that not what put them out in the 70s?
Do you not think that's going to hurt the American people that much more?
It's going to kill the people. Well, I'm going to tell you what the car industry, it's what hurt them the first time around back in the 70s and 80s. Greedy, wanting more and more money, and now they want more money than the car industry can pay them. They don't need no more money. They're already making freaking $40 and $50 an hour. They don't need more than that. If you can't.
How can we compete in paying somebody after you get through paying their 401k, their insurance, and all their bonuses? Whenever it's all said and done, but you're paying somebody like $45 to $60 an hour. Working in a union job, putting on a radiator cap, and maybe looking at 2 or 3 other things as this car's going down this assembly line, and he sits down and he waits for the next vehicle to come down the assembly line, and he does the same thing. He checks 2 or 3 things. But yet, no, you got somebody in let's say, Mexico that's probably doing 3 times that amount of money and ain't getting paid but $12 an hour. How can we compete with that? Huh?
You can't. That's why people does not realize how many businesses, how many big anchor stores. Look at all these brick and mortar stores that have been closed in the last 2 years. not by hundreds, thousands of stores keep closing. You know, and when you look at the gas prices, look how much food is right now. Good Lord's coming. We ain't gonna be here.
Hey, they said, I heard this on the news, and this was a conservative number. They said that at least 120,000 restaurants have gone out of business since COVID hit, and over 70,000 of them is permanent. They'll never come back.
They won't. No, you preach to the choir. I already know all that.
So you're telling me that in the retail industry, the industry that you're in, you're telling me that it's just about as bad as far as your little mama papa shops having to shut down and close down? Really? Really?
Yes, it's bad. I don't look.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is Dyersburg. I mean, is it that way everywhere? Is it that way in Memphis? Is it that way in Atlanta? Is it that way in Dallas?
I mean, look at the empty stores. That's self-explanatory. Look. You don't have to ask me, just look.
You got just a little corner store right here compared to this store right here. This store right here is probably about 3 times that much space, and I guarantee you they'd probably pay about 3 times more money what you paying too.
It's everywhere. It's not just here. It's everywhere. Read to everything. What has hurt this here and everywhere around America is online shopping. That's in a nutshell. Everything's online shopping. That's what's hurt all of us, brick and mortar. I mean, I could talk about it all day, but that's a simple question.
Well, there's no doubt Amazon stepped into the picture, and they're giving Walmart and people like Walmart a fit right now.
Oh, everybody is. I mean, I'm telling you.
Which, in a way, that's good, right? Competition help keep them honest, right?
It's good, but they want to keep people at home. They want people to shop online, ship it to you. They don't want people out talking. We're old school. We don't accept this. We don't want to accept how it is now. It's just the way the world's went. I hate it. I can remember when our slowest day in here, back 15 years ago, it was still like this.
Hustle. Money going.
But now it's like this. It's order online. And this is what's really serious.
The social media platform has done more damage to this country than it has good.
1,000%. It is. It is. Social skills and young people are gone. They don't know how to relate. They'll walk in the store and have a phone, and I'll say, "Can I help you?" And they'll be like, they'll be waiting on their mom and daddy, and they'll be like 21, 22, 23. They don't know how to conversate. They'll be on my glass, asking me. They'll be beating on the door, wanting to know it's 10 o'clock. Why ain't Ollie's open? Can you not read that sign over there? That's not an entrance into Ollie's. They'll beat on my glass. This is ages 15 to 20. They'll beat on that glass and say, "Can you come here, sir?"
Well, don't you think whenever they took God out of schools and they quit disciplined children and they just let them basically run wild, they let the computers and video games babysit them. I mean, the whole thing, we brought this upon ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they call it, they wanted it to be, it's an easier way to communicate, an easier way for kids to learn with social media. But just like what I was going to say, they beat on this class the ages 15 to 20, and I'll come out here and they'll say, "There's this long hallway over here beside your store, but there's no entrance into Ollie's." And I'll say, "Y'all see that sign above the door that says tornado shelter?" They still don't want to accept. They can read it, but it's not.
They don't accept it.
Yep.
And basically, that's what the whole country right now is in a state of mind towards basically in a state of mind of rejection. It ain't just climate deniers. It ain't just election deniers. It's all the way around. They want to deny everything. Don't anything that used to be considered normal is now considered in their eyes abnormal.
And now the people that could make a difference, they're working their butt off above water trying to make it. They don't have time to help this and help that and help that.
Right.
And, they're just, but you know what? It is.
The bubble's going to burst.
It is.
And whenever it does, it's going to be just like a gallon of milk. Whenever a gallon of milk spoils, it spoils on the top just like it spoils on the bottom. Whenever the money goes bad, and I think they already know this is because they're pushing real hard with gold and silver right now. But whenever the money goes bad, it's going to be just as bad on the East Coast as it is the West Coast. The money's going to be just as bad for the rich man as it is the poor man. The only difference is the rich man right now, he's got assets and he's gaining more assets. Okay, that way, whenever the system does collapse, he'll still have his assets.
And when we're just day to day.
Yeah, we're already down to bare bones. We're part of the 99%ers.
We are.
And there should not be no reason why that you shouldn't have succeeded in this business right here. Yeah. Because you're the only one that sells stuff like this.
Yeah, it is.
In Dyersburg.
But you got to have traffic. You got to have other businesses to be in traffic. But besides that being closed up, there again, I'm old school. I don't want to make a website. I don't want to be on social media. I should have revolved and done it about 5 years ago and moved out of here. But I like this. I like talking. I like conversating. That's the way people need to interact.
Interaction.
But I'm 1 out of 10 million, 50, 100 million. Look at it that way. It's online now, and I basically got to where I'm broke now. I'm broke. I got to go to work somewhere. This mall has been sinking for the last 5-6 years with the owners. They've owned it for 9 years and they never owned it.
I'm going to say it's been in the process towards sinking longer than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that 5-year mark, that's a conservative number.
9 years. That's when my contract was up 5.5 years ago.
Okay.
No. But as far as this mall is when the bunch bought it. The bunch that owns it now, they bought it on an auction site, sight unseen. They never owned a mall. They own a couple of strip centers.
I got you.
And they came in. They came in when they bought it. They painted it up, made it look pretty. Painted the whole mall outside.
Right.
Painted the parking lot. It really wasn't no holes out there now. Painted it and ain't never been able to sell it. Right before the pandemic hit, I might have told you this last time I saw you. I know it's been a year or so, but we had some Chinese out of Miami, Florida. Yeah, I wanted Americans to own it. They were in here about 6 or 7 times, 5, 7, 8 times.
Money men, business people.
It was this close to buying. Pandemic hit, we never seen them again. They would have turned this mall around. They would have, and but now the bunch that owns it now,
they would have focused in on the younger generation probably. Yeah. That younger market.
We like in other malls. In these buildings here, these empty spots, they still have booths that you can put all out in the middle. Right. They would have filled all them up that was out here then, and this mall would be, there would be an entrance in there. When Ollie's moved in over there about 2.5, 3 years ago.
I thought that used to be JCPenney's over there.
It was. JCPenney's been gone about 4 years now.
They have.
But Ollie's moved in about a year after they closed. But the owner tried to tell me, he was here a year ago in October, he tried to tell me that Ollie's didn't want an entrance in the mall. Well, there was a district manager in here before him.
That's right. Somebody's built that wall right there, haven't they?
Yeah, Ollie's. Yeah, the mall, the owners of the mall built that
But
wall.
that used to be open right there of glass.
Yeah. And that glass is all still under there.
It's in behind there?
Yep, all they did is
done a covering.
Yeah, that's the same as JCPenney's. All they did is painted that, and all they did is put
Why? Why did they do that?
Huh?
Why?
That's what I was fixing to tell you. They said that the mall, that there was a district manager down here a year ago, and he said they're in malls. He said we wasn't the one that did not want an entrance in the mall. I said, oh, because the owners and them told us that they didn't want an entrance in the mall.
Because JCPenney's is still up and going, right?
The only you got one in Jackson, and I think you got maybe 1 or 2.
They're not as strong as at one time they was, but they're still It's still in existence.
Yeah, but this one, there was 3. They had 3 closings. Well, actually 5 closings nationwide. The one in Union City closed, and then the one in Blytheville closed, and this one was considered a C rate, a smaller JCPenney, but it was still doing good, but it closed, and I hated to see them go, but they filled that spot up. But what they're fixing to do now is they're fixing to close this is going to be, it's supposed to have started a year ago, and they're going to close it where Cato is up there.
Yeah.
They're going to close it, and this is going to be where Joanne's was. It'll be one whole store. They ain't told nobody what it is, but it's going to be one big store. The only available store will be down there, and they're going to convert that over into a big strip mall. You can look over and see where he's done started gutting all them walls out over there. Yeah, he's done started knocking all them walls out, and they're going to close this up within the next few months.
Do you have any idea what the heating and cooling bill on something like this costs to heat and cool this?
Well, they don't run no way. They haven't ran any air in the mall in a year. Used to, you could hear the big, because you got a unit right here, one right. You've got 3 of them down here in the hallway, but you don't even hear them. Usually, they would cut on at 9:30 in the morning and cut off at 9:30 at night. Because the people that own it, that's owned it the last 9 years, they're out of Yazoo, Mississippi, and they cut them on and off at 9:30. But they don't run air. They don't run the air conditioner. They just basically run fans, is what it is.
Keep it ventilated.
Yep.
And now that don't even work.
They cut it off.
Because if they was to keep this mall room temperature comfort, like let's say Walmart, it'd probably cost $20,000 plus a month for utility bills, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, at least it would cost some serious money.
Some serious money to heat and cool this thing, wouldn't it?
And you know, because each unit like mine, any of these stores, we have our own light bill. We have to pay our own.
Really? Plus your rent?
Huh? Oh yeah. That's in every mall.
It is.
Yeah, every mall I've ever been in strip centers, everywhere you pay your.
Well,
own.
you're probably your utility bills probably don't run but about maybe $100, $150 a month.
But you're about right, about $165. But it'd be a lot more than that. My unit, I have not had any air or heat in there. That unit is not my responsibility. It's there. I haven't had any heat or air.
Because the unit's tore up and don't want nobody fix it.
7 years. 7 years I haven't. And when it's hot, it's like a freaking oven in there.
Really?
Because I got that heat press I print shirts with back there. Now in the wintertime, I've got two heaters, plus that press is 400 degrees.
Right.
So, but if it gets down to like 15, 20 degrees, you can almost blow smoke rings in there. But if it stays in the 30s, 40s, it ain't bad in there.
Right.
But summertime, this summer hadn't been too bad. We had about
I'm
3
surprised.
to 4 weeks. But now last summer was the hottest summer we've had in 12, 14 years. It was bad.
No, I think this year's been hotter.
It was bad, but they let me tell you.
Why don't you get you one of them little portable air conditioners? I just bought one from Walmart. They had them on sale. Ordinarily, they get $400. They're on wheels.
Well, I'm not here 2 more weeks, so I mean, I'm gone. Yeah, I won't be here no more.
But I'm just saying, rather than go through all that suffering, you could have had a 110 portable air conditioner, and the one I bought has a air conditioner and a heater.
It would run like a yo-yo in there. You can't close these doors, and there's no air out here.
You could put your curtain or something up there.
You can't do that.
Why?
Because you got to have that open. You can't put nothing up there. Absolutely not.
Well, if you can't put nothing there, I would at least shrink it where the doorway wasn't big enough. You could take a freaking
I'm
2
gone.
elephants and go through that doorway.
I'm gone in less than a little over 2 weeks. So.
But I know, but I'm just thinking, of course, this is all hindsight now, but if you could have shut that door right there or at least shrunk it.
You cannot do that. But bottom line, you can't do that.
Because you're not the owner of the building.
Right.
You'd have to have got ownership.
I rent it. I rent this spot just like everybody else. You
My
can't
goodness.
do stuff like that. You can't do that. No. Oh, you don't think I would have, but you can't do that. Because, and then with no other units down, with nothing down here, you could get you 2 air conditioners in there and blow it, but it would just automatically suck it out.
You know what I've come to the conclusion of thinking?
I wouldn't touch
You
any
can-
of that
you
because
can-
people spit in that.
You can believe it if you want to. I think that this thing is purposely being run down to the ground as far as running us off into a state of bankruptcy.
you're just
I think it's purposely being done,
This
don't you?
small. You talking about this small or this country?
I'm talking about the country in
Oh,
general.
I know it is.
It's the money people. They know that they have failed the American people.
That's over.
And to me, it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. Both parties have failed the American people.
Right.
You know, they wanted to come down here and they wanted to whip the South. They wanted to tell the South how the South was going to eat the cabbage. You know what I'm saying? And the South finally surrendered to them because they had more money and they was a little bit smarter and they was this, they was that. They was already established up in the northern area. So we let them have it for 150 years. Now look what they've done to it.
Oh yeah, and that
Look what they've done to it, man.
No, you look at what's happening to us here. We are being invaded by Westerners.
Yes.
And that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. But we've been invaded by Northerners because of the cost of living. People can't live up there.
Right.
So now they are moving down to the South. And just like Nashville, they're calling Nashville now Little California because of how it's been booming and growing. Because you got people that's got money now, they ain't in California. It's been a mass exodus from California the last 3 years.
Well, there's been an exodus going out of California for the past 10 years for people leaving California and going to places like Denver.
Oh no, they're getting here, man.
Well, they are now.
Yeah, well, in the last 2 to 3 years.
In the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm just saying a lot of the people out there in California was taking advantage of that situation because they would see their property value go from, let's say, $250,000 to $1.5 million, and they would sell out to whoever wanted to buy, and then they would go across the ridge, and then they would either build them a house or buy them a house, and a lot of them would go into business for themselves. And believe it or not, Denver, Colorado has been doing really, really good compared to a lot of other cities.
One of my daughters she lives in Pueblo, which Colorado.
Right there at it.
Yeah. She's been out there about 6 years now, but
they're booming.
Let me tell you how Dyersburg, since 2020, it was about 10,400 people. There's now over 16,100 people here. That tells you how it's growing. Man, you look around here, this place, Dyersburg has been exploding, booming, stuff opening up and on. You're right here at Missouri. You're right here at Arkansas. Like over there in Cape Girardeau.
Right.
Man, they've been drying up the last few years. But this place is exploding. And I think the owners of this mall, because he ain't rich. He's worth a couple $1 million, but it's in assets. He's 65 years old.
Right.
Never owned a mall. But they've been hanging on. And I've been told they're looking for another investor. But if they can convert this into a strip mall, $1,000 a month will be $4,000 or $5,000 a month. It won't be like this because you'll have exit. It won't, because this is going to be one big store.
Well, what started us going in the wrong direction, and we didn't notice it at the time because we was dealing with civil rights movement and stuff like that. But what actually started us going backwards was the assassination of Kennedy.
Yeah.
And then we had Vietnam War, which that was just a lot of bloodshed for nothing as far as I'm concerned. And then we tried to.
Yes, it was.
We tried to help the rest of the world in modernizing them. Yeah. But whenever Sam Walton stood on national TV right beside Bush in 1991 and said, "America first, America first, America first," we will always sell American products and we will always buy American products. Whenever that old man kicked the bucket, that's whenever the Walton family didn't care about what old man Walton wanted, Sam Walton, and that's whenever they started stabbing everybody in the back, and that's whenever they started going overseas and getting 32-inch TVs for about a third of the price of what we could build them and put them on a shelf right here.
We can blame on Bill Clinton for that NAFTA deal.
That NAFTA deal.
But I've had so many people argue with me over the years, not in a long time. They'd say, "Well, we never saw anything like that for 7 years." I said he'd been out of office, and there was another 2 presidents after him. But until you started seeing the effect, because all these people saw cheap labor, and by the
sweatshops. Some of them places don't pay them girls, but maybe $2 a day to work in them sweatshops, making Hanes underwear. You know what I'm saying?
And back then they was paying somebody 10, 20 cents an hour, but now. The majority of them companies that were over there, if they're not a business, they done come back here and still owe money over there overseas.
Well, listen. I know it's raw. I know it's bad. But you better be glad you're not in either Mexico or South America or Honduras or some of them other places. I mean, you've seen what the weather's doing pertaining to the forces of nature. I mean, it's just one major event after another.
Catastrophic.
Yes.
And thousands of people getting killed and dying. And
yes. Have they ever found all the people in Hawaii yet?
No, not much. And they still won't say that it's over 1,300 to 1,600 people. Our government did that. Our own government did that. They burnt Hawaii up, prime real estate. And
no more. The dead hadn't had time to finish rotting. to the point that all them people that did have money started coming there, land grabbers, towards offering all them people that didn't have nothing, started offering them money to sell out. That way we could build our condominiums and our high rises and everything over there.
Pennies on the dollar over there. They burn. I mean, how come you have these people? Let's say Oprah Winfrey. You know, you got Oprah Winfrey and what's his name, the comedian. You got so many of them. She's got over 1,000 acres over there, and I'm gonna tell you, she's not far from going into a shelter hiding because people have been exposed to her. How come all of their land, everything torched around, all them burn up, but none of their houses burn up? Our own government did that. They all burn it because that's primal estate, and it is pitiful, man. They executed them people. And like here, they're trying to start the pandemic back, but Americans ain't buying that again. They didn't kill enough people during the first pandemic, and they're wanting to create a second pandemic. It's been started for the last 2 or 3 months around the world, but now Americans ain't buying it. Like I loved how that Sarah Huckabee over there in Arkansas last month, she signed all those executive orders, you know, about the state will not be shut down. Will not be closed down for mandates.
And they're going after Trump right now on the jugular vein, son. Man. They done realize that this old man is serious about going after him towards draining the swamp, and they are doing any and everything to eliminate him from any type of threat.
They ain't done tried to kill him. That's my opinion. You know, and you look at what Biden. He ain't done nothing. He's so
old and senile. He don't know what's going on. He can't comprehend nothing. He can't even read his own memos.
I don't think it's him. He can't even read off a teleprompter. He gets all confused. And they laugh at him.
So who's running the show?
Who knows?
Who's in behind all this?
Well, you know all of it.
Is it the secret societies? Is it?
It's probably part of it. I wish I could answer that. We know it's not him. Well, you know,
he's just a puppet.
Yeah,
but isn't just about every other president that way, other than Donald Trump? Whenever Donald Trump got in there, they couldn't control him.
I agree 1,000%.
They couldn't control him.
And you still can't. Nobody will convince me that the Clintons, the Obama, they were all still in.
They was puppets.
They are. They're all still in power. Running stuff.
Yes.
Because,
because they become powerful. They become wealthy. That's kind of like Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, he went into office being worth $4 million. He started that company, what was it, Halliburton or something like that. And whenever Katrina hit, he was taking contracts and moving contracts from one paper to another desk over here, and he was making more money off of shuffling paperwork than the people that was actually doing the
billions.
Yes, and whenever he left office, he was worth over $40 million, and that was just within an 8-year period. How can you get paid, what is it, $300,000 or $400,000 a year? And if you add that up times 8, that don't come up no $40 million.
And you know, Obama was the same way.
Yes.
You know, how can that man be worth over $175 to $200 million now? Come on, man. Come on. I mean, and you know, it's good to see somebody like yourself. There's so many of us around here believe the same thing, and we see what's going on. These people.
But we're such of a low minority and just of a low voice.
We can talk about it all day, but we don't matter.
Right.
I'm surprised, and it won't be long.
I'm surprised that a civil war hadn't already broke out.
You just read what I was fixing to say. I said we're surprised that a civil war.
And it would have had if they would have been better organized up there January the 6th.
Absolutely, they would have.
But would that have crippled us and made things worse, or would it have made things better? You know, it's one thing. What was that movie where the guy was fighting and stuff, and he said, well, what good is it towards exchanging one dictatorship for another dictatorship?
That's right.
You remember what the movie I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're just passing a baton.
That's right.
From one dictator to another.
That's right. So in a way, whenever Putin says that they're all corrupt, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat, Republican party, as far as
I believe they're all corrupt.
I do too.
I mean, I'm a diehard.
They just do it in a different way.
They do.
They do it in a more slick, sly way.
I agree.
It's the 1%ers that's going to be in charge, and they just make us believe that we're getting our way whenever we have an election. But if the truth be known, it really don't matter what horse that you put on top of the mantle that you're looking at. The bottom line is the people that was in control during the Democrat Party are still going to be in control during the Republican Party, and whenever it rolls over towards being the other way, the people that was in control during all that other stuff, they're still going to be in control. It goes down to the has-is and the has-nots.
It's just your change, you know.
The has-is and the has-nots. The has-is got what they got, and they're not going to let go of what they got so that people like me and you can get on top. And it used to be that you could come to America, or if you was born here in America, you really had an incentive that if you was loyal to a company and you done the right thing, at the end of your lifespan, it was going to be rewarding. You was going to have your home paid off. You was going to have, a vehicle to drive.
They took care of you.
They took care of you.
They took care of you.
Today, loyalty don't mean nothing no more.
Nothing. You're just a statistic on a piece of paper. And if you can't help them, if you're no need to them, you're just shoved out the door and they look for somebody else. That's why the workforce in America is, and that's why
it's at its worst.
I've never seen.
It's at its worst.
When I went to my interview,
but yet no, they want to say, well, what's motivating these kids towards them getting out here and going to the black market and doing drugs and taking drugs? Well, whenever your desires and your dreams, whenever you've lost your momentum in life towards doing any better, what else are you going to resort to?
No desire. And you look, these kids, they are starting a young teenager from
it's sad.
18 to 25.
It is sad.
18 to 25 years old of age, you can go start somewhere if you're a good worker. You can go start somewhere making $20 an hour, 25 if you're a good hard worker. And now their mentality, they ain't got no work ethic, so they'll work there a couple weeks, a month, two, and then they'll quit and go to another one. Job. What would we have done if we had jobs like this back in the 70s and 80s? No, we took it. I've had 4 or 5 jobs my whole life. And I mean, I've been in business for myself for the last 30 years, but that, woohoo, look where I'm at now, and it's because of society, I could have revolved it.
There wasn't no reason why that you couldn't have become a millionaire in the length of time that you were sitting here right here. You could have become a millionaire, man, in the retail market right here.
You could have, we could have, I could have maybe, but you got to have ownership. And you've got to have you've got to have attractive stores that keep the traffic flow. The internet took that away from us.
It sure did.
It took that away.
Well, between the internet, your big conglomerates like Walmart, Big K, Kmart, all those other ones that come in. Yeah. And we've seen the same thing happen. I'm a little older than you, but we've seen the exact same thing happen in the late 70s, early 80s, pertaining to the mama papa businesses. And it wasn't just the farmers.
Oh, yeah.
It was the retail stores. It was the hardware stores. Yeah. It was all the above that basically the big people squeezed them out to where now, you got the big mega farmers that farm 25 to 3,000, maybe 5,000 acres per family. To where whenever we was farming 500 acres in the late 70s, early 80s, that was considered a decent little farm.
And could live good.
That was a decent little farm until interest rates shot up to 24%. Diesel went from about 36 cents a gallon up to about 80 cents a gallon, and everything just went to pot.
It did. And I'm going to say, people want to say put a certain year on it, but I'm going to say we had a recession back in the late 90s. The late 90s, the early 2000s recession.
You know what's been causing the recessions? For surely you're smart enough to figure this out.
Oh, heck, yeah, we all know.
The oil industries. The oil industries. They'll raise the price up $1 and then drop it down 50 cents and make us think, well, we're getting a good deal because we're no longer paying $1. No, but you're paying 50 cents more for it than what you was 6 months ago. Did you know that we was paying $2 a gallon for gasoline whenever Trump was president, and now it's almost double that?
No, you're wrong. The highest it was ever when he was in office, the highest it ever was, was 169 when he was in office. 169, and it got down to 112. Of course, that fluctuated everywhere, but that was the average. It averaged up around $2, but the average was around.
But what is the average now? It's almost $4 a gallon. That's nationwide.
And that's nationwide, It's just like, you know, I live south of Jackson.
So let me ask you something. How come we hadn't caught on to this pertaining to the mega oil companies, and how come somebody hadn't been putting them in jail? Because I guarantee you, if there was a catastrophe, let's say Katrina, whenever Katrina hit down there in South Mississippi, if you went down there and started taking advantage of those people and selling them ice for $20 a gallon, they would have arrested you for price gouging. But yet, no, Big Pharma can put whatever price that they want to on. The hospitals can basically put whatever charge that they want to. The oil companies can put whatever charge that they want to. We're being controlled, brother. We are under bondage.
It's just like, yes, we are. And, you know, and they're actually, the pandemic was just a way to execute Americans and people around the world because we're overpopulated. I firmly believe that our own government, you know, they fabricated a pandemic, but that didn't kill enough people.
You know, the only difference between now and the Egyptians, whenever they had a ball and chain on them toward being slaves, you know the difference?
What's that?
England started this.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to about the 11th or 1200th century, whenever they started talking about the pen is more mightier than the sword. That's whenever you started having all these smart people come into play that started dominating and dictating into people's lives. That's whenever your crooked attorneys, that's whenever your crooked judges, that's whenever the system started getting tainted. And now it's basically engulfing itself, and that's what's going to happen whenever the big sharks, whenever they've ate up all the bigger fish below them and all the little fish below them, eventually the big sharks start eating on one another, and that's at the state that we're at right now.
We are. I agree.
Once there's nothing else to feed off of, then they start feeding off of one another. But even then, there's going to be an end to the feeding frenzy. You know what I'm saying? And whenever it collapses, it'll be just like that gallon of milk that I told you about. Whenever it spoils, it won't just spoil on one side. The whole thing will go down. And I'm just afraid that if that was to happen right now, with us being so globally connected, do you realize how hard? I mean, you think that it's horrible right now in places like North Africa. Just got through getting that earthquake.
Yeah.
They claim it's over 5,000 dead. Somewhere that it had a flood. What the country?
Morocco? Wasn't that in Morocco?
Morocco was the earthquake, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought they said that there's thousands still missing.
But there was a big flood. Where was that at?
I don't know. I thought that was in Morocco. I don't know.
It may have been Morocco. They're saying like 15,000's gone.
Yeah.
Gone. The 2 or 3 dams blowed. It had so much, and what does the Bible say about it? It says that in the last days, to flee into the mountains whenever you shall start to see these things occurring, because God's Son foreseen that there was going to be massive weather events that was going to happen in the last days. It has put us where we are today.
It's been happening the last couple of years, but we're seeing
big time
earthquakes, famine. We're seeing these.
Have we ever had a famine here in America?
Well,
I mean, they had the Dust Bowl era back in Oklahoma, but have we really ever had a famine today?
I call. Hey, Dave, what's up? I call.
Hey, man, how's it going, buddy? You doing okay?
I call famine poverty. You know, and it's
famine is just whenever you ain't got nothing.
Everywhere, and that's really happening everywhere, man.
Have you seen the homeless people in California? Have you seen where they're taking all the illegal immigrants to New York City, and it's going to freaking destroy New York?
Well, yeah. You know, they asked for that. They asked for that. They wanted to be sanctuary cities, so they started flooding them all up there. Between here and Nashville, let's say this region, we've got over 20,000 immigrants in this area. You really can't tell it because between here and Nashville, that's several hundred miles, but there's a lot of them in this region.
We're talking about people without a green card that ain't even supposed to be here.
Yeah. Well, these are ones.
We're talking about illegals.
These are ones that's been flooded.
But it's not just Mexicans. It's Haitians. It's Cubans. It's every ethnic group you can think of. Everybody wanted to jump on board towards getting the free money and milking the cow, huh?
And you won't feed our homeless people starving on the streets, but then you'll take care of these illegals. You know, give them $600-800 a month, give them a cell phone, and you know when they're going to start hearing all them cases, it's going to be in 2026 and 2027. You think them people still going to have that cell phone they give them across that border when they come in? Shit. They probably threw it back in the Rio Grande River, man. I'm telling you, we in shape. We in bad shape. You know.
I've never seen the weather change like it has.
Yeah.
You know, towards seeing these deluges. You know what I'm saying? Seeing 10, 12 inches of rain fall out of the sky in just a few hours.
And then just mudslides and small towns wiped away. I mean, you're right. You're right. We've had rain our whole life, but not like that. And that's the holes in heaven. You can look it up online. Our Raytheon, that big military contractor, they control our weather, man. They can control.
Does that have something to do with the HAARP?
That's what it is. Holes in heaven, HAARP. Yep, that's it. That's exactly
what is all that about? Have you ever looked into that?
It's where they heat up the ionosphere and they can control the weather pattern. They can't really control them to go exactly what they want, but they create these massive, and they.
You know the only thing saving us right now?
But you know when I started, real quick, you know when I started looking all that up and reading on that, I was reading on that back in the mid-90s.
It almost sounds science fiction, don't it?
Yeah, it does, but it's true. Raytheon, the big military contractor, they have...
Where are they located at? Where's their headquarters at?
I think it's out in California. But yeah, they're the biggest military contractors in the country. And they can control it.
Well, have you seen some of the caves and some of the underground things of all the ice melting that we're discovering now today?
Oh, man.
Have you seen some of that stuff? How about the Euphrates River drying up so much to where now they're going in caves down in the Euphrates River, and it sounds like they said it sounds like demons screaming. And it talks about that in the Bible that there will be demons that will be loosed from the bottom part of the river Euphrates, and the Bible also says that the river Euphrates will dry up, talking about the $1,000,000 war, that the blood will be as deep as a horse bridle pertaining to a battle. Well, what's going to promote all that? What's going to force all that to occur? You know good and well that if something is causing one of the 5th major waterways in the country to dry up, it's going to have an effect on our lives too here in the United States and all the other 6 continents. All the other 6 continents, you know good and well, it's bound to affect all of us.
I don't know.
I think the earth's warming up from the inside out.
Oh, I think it is. I agree.
I think we have drained so much oil out of the ground to where we have destabilized the system. It's an ecosystem. Everything's got an ecosystem to it. It don't matter if it's crickets or ants or whatever. Everything's got an ecosystem, and we've disturbed the ecosystem.
I agree 1,000%.
They're saying that it's some sort of a globe, and we're holding heat in this globe of the upper atmosphere, and the reason why the upper atmosphere is so hot. That's the reason why the moisture is going higher. Which some of that I agree with. The atmosphere has got hotter above the clouds, and because of it, the moisture goes up even higher, and it holds more moisture, and then whenever it releases as a deluge. I do go along with that theory, but the theory towards cows farting that's causing the earth to warm are aerosol cans, or R134 versus R112, the refrigerator free. That's just a bunch of guesswork, man. What's doing this, and they noticed it and knew it 50 years ago that we was damaging this earth by draining so much oil out of the earth.
It's not only oil, it's natural gas.
All of it.
It's everything. It's everything from oil, coal. It's everything.
And what does the Bible say about that? The Bible says that He will come back. God will come back and destroy those who are destroying the earth. Well, if it wasn't possible for mankind to destroy the earth, do you think it would have ever been in the Bible?
Yeah, I agree. Well, they're destroying it now.
We're destroying it.
It's not far. He's not far off.
Well, what I was going to tell you a while ago, the only thing that's saving us is the big mass of ice on the North Pole and the South Pole. That ice is producing enough energy that it's still keeping the hot water at a certain temperature.
Right.
It would be the same thing if you had 2 glasses of water
Yeah.
and both of them had the identical temperature. Identical size glass, the whole 9 yards. You put a small cube in this one and put a big ice cube in this one and see what the difference is pertaining to the water cooling off. Whenever the ice melts enough, you know what's going to start happening to the seas and the oceans?
Oh, they're going to rise, man. They're going to start boiling. It's going to kill all the food.
Whenever they start boiling, that's whenever the world will become uninhabitable.
Oh,
and that's whenever the oceans and the seas will actually start dissipating. Instead of the oceans going up right now, like we're seeing all the coastal, it's gonna have a reverse effect.
We are in that day. I'm telling you.
Right now, the only thing saving us is the ice. But whenever that ice melts enough, man. Did you know that there's places in the oceans that you can go down into the ocean and the water temperature starts increasing? It starts getting hotter as you go down deeper.
Because the deeper you go, you're going closer to the. Well, you're not getting nowhere near.
You're going down to the abyss. And that's basically the beginning phases of the center of the earth. And you have to ask yourself this question. We know that there's been volcanoes ever since the beginning of time.
Look how they've been going all around the world.
They have increased like over 300% just within the past few years. Of course, the majority of them is under the water. We can't see them, but we know that they're there.
Yeah.
But what's been feeding that fire in the center of the earth?
Well,
do you think maybe it could have been the oil that we're draining from it?
Take away precious materials. I mean,
what has been feeding the fire? Because something had to have been feeding it down there.
Well, you got to think when you know all that. It's the good Lord put all that. It's like a barrier between the center of the earth and us. Well, you take that barrier and all that. Well, you're going to start heating the earth up from the bottom. And I think that, and I firmly believe
we're sitting on a time bomb.
Huh?
We're sitting on a time. We're standing and sitting on a time bomb,
Yes.
and it's just a matter of time before this thing starts breaking away. And I'm going to tell you something else that I've looked at realistically. It talks in the Bible where the earth will open up. And it's supposed to be locusts or something like locusts.
Yep.
That's supposed to have the sting 7 times greater than a scorpion bite.
Right.
What's going to cause the earth to open up?
Man.
Did you know that in the center of Africa, that their whole continent right now is separating into 2 continents? Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been reading all that, man. I'm gonna tell you. And you just got to think all these other countries, you know, that have been joining the alliance with Russia. Now, you look at all them, you know, that was normally allies of us, you know, and they're circling around America now like vultures.
Well, the alliances are changing.
Yeah. Oh Lord, they have.
They're changing. And if the truth be known, China has never been for America.
No, they haven't. We all know that. Well, we've built their country into into a massive. They used to be third. China, Japan,
an empire.
50, 60 years ago, them were barely. They were.
You know,
third world
people don't
countries.
realize this, but in the late 1800s, coming into the 1900s, they had an opium problem.
Yeah.
Over there in China, to the degree that they had to go around and dig mass graves and kill hundreds of thousands of millions of people.
Yeah.
And people that was on heroin that couldn't control it.
Right.
And that was the only way to get rid of it is that they had to go around killing a bunch of people.
And now look at all the drugs that they're sending over here with these cartels and
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl. It's an epidemic, man.
Oh yeah.
And it's everywhere. You know, everywhere you're looking. And I mean, I like, for instance, I look on the Memphis and mugshots and half of them
Crime is
Jackson.
Yeah.
And you look at the people. Half of them that are charged with drugs. It's fentanyl. It's just, you know.
But all that is just an evolving door. They go in, then they come back out, then they go back in, then they come back out, then they go back in.
I'm gonna tell you, people better look what's going on. I've been saying that.
So whenever 1929 happened and the Great Depression hit, the majority of the people in the countrysides was still getting around on horse and buggy. The majority of the people that could afford a gun, what type of gun that they had back then was a gunpowder gun.
Yeah.
Today, a musket. Today, probably almost every American's got like 7 to 10 guns, and they've got 2 or 3 automobiles. So if this thing was to collapse, how quick would it take for rioting to start in places like Walmart? Hours? Hours?
If that, yes. Yes. It will be.
3 days, 72 hours, it'd be on, won't it?
You better have your houses with what you want in, because, and you know, I live way out in the country, but people are going to leave these cities, and you're going to have to kill everybody that comes to you, because they're going to come to either kill or be killed. That's what's going to happen, and I don't think we're far away from that.
Well, it talks about in the Bible that as you shall see the days approaching, that no flesh shall be saved, but for the elect's sake whom he has chosen, that those days would be shortened. And I've asked God many, many times, God, what's going to happen to us? You know, is it going to be a pandemic? Is it going to be a meteor or a comet come out of the sky? And God showed me. It's because of draining all the oil pertaining to earthquakes, volcanoes. That's actually disrupting. It's disrupting our atmosphere to the degree that now we're seeing the Bible fulfill itself, because it said that Satan will come down in the last days in great wrath. Come down, come down, come down. And I used to think, well, that's pertaining to evil people. That's pertaining to somebody going into a school and killing a bunch of kids, or kicking out a window in Las Vegas. Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. But these storms that's coming down, they're not of God. They're of the devil, coming down in great wrath.
It's here.
We ain't seen nothing yet.
No, but we're seeing the beginning of it. Regardless of what you think, we're seeing the beginning of it, because it's just like, when did good become bad and bad become good?
We're there. That part, we're there.
We are there.
I mean, if your hair ain't colored pink or orange or green, and if you're not a bisexual or an LGBTQ person or a gay or a lesbian, you're considered a freak. In other words, the normal people that was always considered normal, now we're abnormal.
Yeah, we're outcasts. And they are shoving on that liberal media, on that TV, that monster, they're shoving it down our throats. You know, they want us to accept all that, and I'll never accept it.
Well, what's the deal with is it Florida that's banning a bunch of books? What's up with that?
I don't know.
What's going on with that?
I don't know. I've heard a little bit about it, but I'm not sure. You know.
Are they teaching kids to accept yourself? If a boy wants to become a girl, or a girl wants to become a boy, that's a natural thing now? Is that what they're teaching?
I don't know. Not in Florida. DeSantis wouldn't go for that. That's what they're trying to, but I don't think that'll ever happen in that state. I could be wrong though, because they're trying to make people think that, to identify that you can be a girl if you're a boy, or you can be a boy if you're a girl, or you can be both.
How about the litter boxes? Don't start putting litter boxes in schools so these kids can use the bathroom. How far is this going to go?
We're there. It's been doing about the litter boxes. That stuff's been going on for like 2.5 years. As far as that, to where somebody wants to pee in a litter box.
That's kind of like the creepy clown thing. Remember a few years ago, the creepy clown thing?
That is the devil at work.
Yes.
Doing that.
Yes.
And you are now seeing the devil acting out, going through our children, doing this stuff.
Destroying their minds.
Yes.
Destroying their very souls.
It is, because you start.
And like you said, it's right here. Social media pertaining to AI. AI is what is going in and altering people's thinking. It's altering our way of life. It's altering everything about us.
It is. Well, when you can sit here, and what does that do when you do kids that way? Who does that affect? The parents, us. It's you hit your kids, the ones we love and cherish the most. You know, that's going to tear. It's tearing families up.
The very fabric. The fabric.
The families, the religions. It's doing it.
Well, see, I was listening to a seminar one time where that actually began in the mid-1900s, whenever the mother could no longer stay at home because of everything else pricing itself, and it was a deliberate attempt towards now the mother had to work and the father had to work. Yeah. So that took that family personal value away.
Don't have that. No, have that in a lot of families no more because both mother and daddy, you know, and kids are either left with grandmas and grandparents, and we want them to talk about the grandparents that are raising their grandkids now because the parents are either dead or in prison.
Most of the children today are being raised by that TV or the computer or some sort of game show or something. You know what I mean?
With their and why their grandparents and the grandparents don't know what to do. They're retired or they're trying to retire, and it's pitiful.
So how are we gonna stop it?
Good Lord's going to stop it.
How are we gonna start a revolution?
I don't know.
It's going to have to be a spiritual revolution.
It will. That's why I said
it's going to have to be a revival. That's going to only thing that's going to save us.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's going to have to start spiritually and then evolve out to a revolution. Is the only thing that's going to save us.
People better get right with the Lord because He's coming. He won't put up with this much longer. And I'll look you straight in the eye. He's coming.
Well, you know, there's been during World War I, during the Spanish flu, during World War II, during Vietnam War, whatever. I mean, there's been areas during the cultures throughout generations that during the time that those people was going through what they was going through, they probably thought that they was going through great tribulation. Well, but the world has not went through great tribulation yet.
Not nothing back then like they are. No, I wasn't alive back then, but not like what they are now.
But what I'm saying is whenever great tribulation hits, that's whenever God the Father is going to come back in flaming fire, the Bible says. Taking vengeance upon them who know not God and upon them who obey not the gospel, and everything that is burnable will be burnt down to the ground. And basically any stores, any homes, any businesses, satellites, anything that's burnable will basically be burnt. And of course, all the smoke is going to go up into the atmosphere. And if you don't have sunlight, what's going to happen to the agriculture department? They're going to suffer because you got to have sunlight to grow crops, right? So if you don't have food, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it'd be dog eat dog.
You're talking about cannibalism.
No, it is, and I don't think we're far away.
Did you know that cannibalism is already in existence right now in South Africa because the environment has gotten so bad that the lions and the tigers and the people can't live over there, and the headhunters has come out, my friend. The headhunters.
It's been happening for thousands of years. Cannibalism. It's just not in this country.
And I've been told that some of it even goes on down there in South America and Mexico.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming. We're not far away.
Don't that just give you the woolies, though, to think that this is right around the corner, that we're fixing to experience this and our children is going to have to go through suffering? It just makes me want to cry, man.
The Lord's on my side. I'm ready. I'm not ready for that, but
You know, it's got to the point, and I hate to say this openly, but I mean, it's true. Whenever a disaster does hit, like an earthquake that killed like 5,000 or 10,000 people, you know, the lucky ones are those that perished.
Yeah.
The other ones has to go through the aftermath of all the suffering. And that's that way with a flood, it's that way with a hurricane, it's that way with an earthquake or a volcano or whatever. The lucky ones are those that perish.
Because they don't have to deal with it.
They don't have to deal with the suffering. They don't have to deal with the pain no more.
We're in the suffering days now. It's nothing like what it's going to be, but
you know, whenever I was just a kid, I was probably, I guess, about maybe 6. I think this is along about 1965.
yeah.
There was a bunch of old men. They was spitting
How old are
in.
you now?
I'm 62. They was spitting in a spit tomb, and they was around this big potbelly stove, and they was talking. And they was Bible oriented, and they was talking about the end of time, and they was telling everybody in that store that before the end of time, bread would be $10 a loaf. You know how much bread was in 1965? About 16 cents a loaf. And they was already foreseeing where today you can go to Walmart or some of these other and get some of that good bread, that Hawaiian bread or whatever. Some of that stuff's already about $4.50 to $5 a loaf.
Yeah. Even the good Wonder Bread is like $3.18, $3.45. To where back 6-7 years ago, it was like $1.47.
Right.
$1.98.
Bacon went out of sight. Eggs went out of sight. Your primary milk, like Turner, your good milk, I've seen it going for like $6 a gallon. That was back about a year or so ago. I don't know what it is now.
I I do Great Value, and that's for half gallon is like $2.08. That's what I get. But if you get Turner or the other Prairie Farm,
yes,
just say, because I always get, it's just me, so I get half gallon. $2.08 for Great Value, but it's like $3.47 to $3.99 for a half gallon for the name brands.
And that's here. So
yeah.
Can you only imagine what it would be if they had to truck all that stuff up to you, and you lived up in let's say Vail or Silverthorne or up in the Rocky Mountains somewhere, or another. You know good and well they bound to be paying at least $2 a gallon more for it.
Think about Alaska, how much a gallon of milk would cost you in Alaska right now. I have people that live up there and they draw subsidies, however you want to say it, because they've lived up there several years now. But they'll come down here and buy $10,000–$15,000 worth of food, because like a can of food here, you know, because you just don't have big grocery stores up there.
Right.
They don't have 1,000th of food less of what we have here, what they have there. So they'll come up here and stuff they buy here that say $1.47 a can, up there is up around $7 to $10 a can.
You know, whenever I noticed the environment changing was whenever I started seeing armadillos invade this area, because back whenever I was a kid growing up, we didn't have no armadillos here.
I started seeing armadillos in Tennessee, I'm going to say back in the 80s, back in the late 80s and 90s.
That's whenever our environment started changing.
Yeah, it did. You know, the stuff that migrates all the way from Texas, stuff down on the coast, up this way, you know that you know. And
of course, long about 2000, whenever that typhoon hit, they said that actually shifted the Earth off its axis about 0.75%. That means, looking at the equator, all the weather patterns that used to be in Tennessee, now we're getting the same weather patterns that's down in Alabama.
Yeah.
The weather patterns that was up in Indiana, now they're getting our weather patterns. You know what I'm saying? Because the world shifted. And if I'm not mistaken, there was another shift that it went through too.
Well, it's just like, you know, I've farmed my whole life, and it's just like with planting season. You know, used to, man, we'd put tomatoes out middle of March and all that. You can't put tomato plants out in March anymore. Frost will get them. Frost will kill them. You got to put them out around the middle of April. It used to, but the seasons has changed over the last, I'm gonna say, 8 to 10 years, and it's just like now.
But how about whenever it gets freaking 85 degrees a day or two before Christmas, like that outbreak of tornadoes that freaking wound up taking
just don't know.
Kentucky plumb off the freaking map, and we've seen that again and again and again with these outbreaks of tornadoes in the middle of winter. We never did see stuff like that whenever I was a kid growing up around here.
I think they're going to get more violent.
I think they are too.
I think they're going to get more and more violent.
I'd seen a science fiction show. I was probably a teenager at the time, and there was some sort of it wasn't really an astronomy guy pertaining to the stars and everything, but it was like a scientist. And he more or less made a prediction about the forces of nature. He must have had a crystal ball or could see something that I couldn't see or couldn't nobody else see, because he said before this is over with, the forces of nature are going to become so violent that whenever lightning strikes and hits a house, it'll blow part of the house on the corner up and it'll catch the house on fire. He said it's a possibility that the lightning will become so powerful that whenever it hits a house, it'll evaporate the house and everything in the house. The house and everything in the house.
I believe it. We're just like now, seasons have changed
drastically.
They've changed dramatically, and they've shifted more north over the last I'm gonna say 7 to 10 years. And I don't only base that on how people plant; it's how we plant gardens and how people farm. You know, it's just what we like now. Normally, you never see people picking soybeans. Normally they're picking soybeans. They might be pulling with the tractor, pulling the combine through mud in November.
Right.
Look, it is September, and they have been picking beans the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
That and been picking cotton. I mean, not cotton, but picking
corn.
Corn too.
Yeah.
Corn, and you don't never see that. Now these have been, last year the crops were horrible because we had 2 rains for 3 months. But I'm gonna tell you, man, the crops were bumper crops this year. Great. But I've never seen, this is what, my farming my whole life, I seen beans that were just green, just beautiful green.
They claim with this hybrid stuff now that they've done so much.
I agree.
Conforming. They said that you can take a bean now and throw it on a concrete floor, and as long as it's got moisture going to it, it'll come up. It'll come up.
It would.
It'll grow.
It's just like what I was going to say.
It'll grow.
You had these soybeans that were green. Within a week, they're brown. They're totally brown. The next week, they're picking them. You're like, it used to grow, and we haven't had no scorching weather. Usually, you start seeing them turn.
Usually
yellow,
it took a freeze before the leaves started falling.
And it would take 4 weeks after they started changing
before you could get in there and start combining. Now you can do it in 2.
Just like that.
Now you can do it in 2 without a freeze.
Yeah.
Without a freeze.
I'm gonna tell you.
And the corn, they plant corn now, whatever, 2 inches apart or something like that. Some of these farmers now, it ain't nothing for them to get 250 bushel to the acre.
Man, yeah, but the thing about it, like all of them, that's why you see silos everywhere now, because the price ain't nothing on them now. They have to sit on them. They have to sit on them for 6 months to get a high price.
I don't know. There's been some awful big things. Pakistan got flooded last year.
I'm talking about the price.
Putin blowed up a dam over there and ruined about 10,000 or 20,000 acres of good prime crops over there in the Ukraine area. There's been all kinds of other natural catastrophes that every time that happens. Listen, every time that happens, it diminishes the resources around in that area.
Yeah.
Just like all the fires that happen out in Hawaii. Well, whenever you start building all the houses back, you're gonna have to get materials from somewhere. Where are they going to get the materials from? They're going to cut down more trees, ain't they?
Well, they don't want to do that.
They're going to cut down more trees.
They want to make them smart cities. They executed them people. They executed America. They executed them Hawaiians because they want to make them into that whole area.
But you see what I'm saying, as far as every time there's a catastrophe, it don't matter if it's a flood, a fire, or a hurricane or tornado, it diminishes the resources.
Oh, it does.
And what is everything based around? Supply and demand, right? Supply and demand.
Prices go up. And it's sad that we can grow. They try to do everything to put our farmers out of business to where we got to be totally dependent on buying stuff from overseas because we've done sold out to these other countries. Man, beautiful.
How about all these China coming over here and buying up all this property?
Oh man, they've been doing that for 20 years.
Around all these military institutions. What's in behind their mind there?
We don't want to talk about that. You already know.
You think
they're wanting to take over America?
You think they're wanting to take over the world?
Yes. Well, yeah. One world order. One world order.
You serious?
Yes.
I know there's lots of talk right now towards them changing the freaking currency, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It's coming. I hope it don't ever get that way because it's control. They want one world order where there's no dollar currency.
Is it going to be the euro? Or
I don't know.
What have they? I think that's one of the things they're debating on right now. They really don't know who's going to be in control of that money. That's kind of like Google and Facebook. You can't really control them. So what do you do in exchange? You take them over. You go in and you take over Google. You take over Facebook. You take over these social media platforms. Our government has lost control of itself.
There won't be no dollar.
You hear me?
Yeah.
It's lost control of itself. And until our government...
For years now.
Yes, until it decides to want to do the right thing, we're suffering.
Yeah. We are.
And we think that we're suffering. My God. There's a lot of good, decent people out there, man, that is falling through the cracks.
They want to do away with the dollar bill so they can control man and know every little dime, every little thing you spend. That's what they want to do, and they want to see that.
So we're being enslaved. But we're not being enslaved with a ball and chain no more. We're being enslaved by basically being blackmailed.
Yeah.
Being taken hostage.
I was just being saying, we're being taken hostage. Yes. And it's basically going to say, we've got your money. It's on your card. It's in your bank account. You're going to do what we say. If you don't do what we say, you're not going to get your money.
I had a good friend in Union City. I grew up with him. He's actually kin to me. whenever COVID broke out and basically shut the countryside down, he looked at me, because that was about the time when all those stimulus checks was coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, Juby, he said, this ain't right, man. He said, there's going to be a payday for all this money coming out. He said, one day we're going to have to pay for all this stuff. He said, when has the government ever started giving us anything?
Nothing, never. Never.
Who said that not long ago? Said you'll own nothing and be happy. Remember that?
No, I agree. Well, you won't own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
Well, if they had their way about me, going back in 1983 in Kenton, Tennessee, whenever I first started talking about Bible prophecies and the end time, if they would have had their way with me, right now, I would be doing the Thorazine shuffle, walking around slobbering all over my shoes, not knowing daylight from dark, bumping into the walls, not knowing who the president was or what year it was. If they had their way with me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're not the only one there that they wanted a lot of people done.
See, they outlawed doing biotomies on people, going into their head or the back of their neck and clipping their nerve endings back there. They outlawed that probably long about World War I time. They outlawed that because they realized that was dishumane. Yeah, yeah. Well, nowadays the doctors have become so smart that they can basically do the same thing with chemicals. With chemicals.
They're doing it now.
In other words, if you're not freaking crazy whenever you go in,
you will be when you go out.
Yes, sir. You won't know daylight from freaking dark. You'll be slobbering all over your shoes, and you won't be able to think. You won't be able to respond. And could that be the reason why that all these drugs that's come over here purposely to try to put everybody in that type of a state?
To destroy Americans.
Yes.
Top to bottom.
To the point that we won't even know what's going on, like you said. We won't be able to comprehend what's happening to us until it's too late. Until we've done been taken over. Is it a possibility that the United States flag could fall? Is it a possibility that we could fall into a brand new, different regime like either China or Russia? Yes, it's possible. Matter of fact, they asked Biden the other day, because we just got through going through the 22nd year of the anniversary. They just got through asking Biden a while ago, or not a while ago, but a day ago. He was up in Alaska at the time. And they said, Mr. Biden, do you feel like that our country is safer today than what it was before 9/11? And like a fool, he gets up there and says, well, yeah, I sure do.
He don't know what he's saying anyway. He's
yeah, I think it's safer. Knowing good and well that these countries are suffering the way that they are right now, and war is at the brink of just about every one of them. Did you know that? We're going to see major supply line issues, and it ain't nothing uncommon anymore to go somewhere and where you was used to getting the same product every week. It would always be on aisle 2 up on a shelf. Now whenever you go in there, it's liable to be there, and then again it's liable not. It's just liable not be in stock. They didn't get it, and you like to have to substitute for something different, settle for something different. So we're already seeing major supply chain issues.
Well, we've been seeing that for the last 3.5 years since the pandemic.
Since COVID hit.
Yeah, since COVID. Yeah.
COVID has really upset the apple cart, hasn't it?
Man, that's what they wanted, though. They wanted it that way.
You know what I think? You may think I'm crazy by saying this, but I think our government officials knew it was coming down the pike.
Yeah, they did. It was cool. It was planned.
And you know who else knew it was coming down the pike? Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Because whenever Trump was president, he went over to visit him, and they was writing love letters back and forth. Remember all that? Kim Jong-un was telling United States, we got a Christmas present for the Americans. We got a Christmas present for the Americans. And it got so unsettling with our national security that Kim Jong-un had set off a missile, and Hawaii went on a DEFCON 1 thinking that it could have possibly been a nuclear missile, and it's freaked everybody out on the islands in Hawaii. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what our Christmas present was?
COVID.
COVID.
We all on the same page about that. We all knew that. It's sad.
I think it was man-made, and I think it was purposely planted in China, because from North Korea to over there where that lab was ain't but about a 12 to 13 hour drive. You can make it fairly easy in one day. You could go drop off that stuff, put it in a container, and walk away from it, and then go back to North Korea. That was our Christmas present. That was our Christmas present. But what gets me is the carelessness coming from China, because China already knew that stuff they had an outbreak of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they did not let none of the airline industries know. They didn't let none of the national people know, pretending what was going on until it was already,
It still let them, even after, it still let them come in for the next 6 months to a year to infect us.
And of course, it caught our people completely blindsided. Trump didn't know how to respond to that stuff. One time he said, well, maybe you need to drink a bunch of bleach or something. And then there towards the last, he wound up getting it. It's Thousand Wonders he didn't wind up kicking the bucket because of it. That stuff that stuff was real. It was like a super duper advanced flu that actually attacked the respirator system. Because I had a couple of friends that died of it, older people, and they was saying that if you ever got so bad that they had to put you on a respirator, it was a 90% chance at that point that you was not going to live. If they ever had to put you on an iron lung, a respirator, at that point you was 90% already dead.
They achieved what they set out to do. They wanted to kill Americans.
They wanted to eliminate the population control, didn't they?
And it didn't kill enough of them. It didn't kill enough of us.
So now they're having to divert to something else now, ain't they?
Oh yeah, that's what they're doing. Americans ain't buying it again though. Yeah, it's already started around.
So whenever the fuel prices went up this time, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of what was going on towards disrupting about 20 million people over in Ukraine with Russia, between the three hitting all at one time, that is what has really upset the apple cart. And if the truth be known, they have done it, the oil production industries, the big typhoons, they have done it again and again and again, but this time they got caught.
Yeah, they did. They did. Nobody ain't falling for it no more.
This time they got caught, didn't they?
Yeah.
But do you see any of our officials wanting to do anything to them?
Nothing. They don't want to do nothing about it.
Now, somebody told me the other day that Trump had made mention that they did need to all go to jail.
Oh, they all need to be.
But now Trump gets up there and spews out stuff that if he becomes president, he's gonna pardon every one of the people that was engaged in January the 6th, and they're all going to be able to get out of jail too. I don't know. Is that old man just blowing smoke? Or is he really serious about wanting to take control over this country? Because I really think that he foreseen this country fixing to collapse, because he kept telling us on January the 6th, if we don't do what if we don't fight like hell, we're going to lose the country, is what he said.
Yeah, and it's just like he can only do so much, and I think that he will put them all in jail if he can get back in. But he's worried now about getting the economy back on track.
I think he's more worried about
if we even make it. If this world even makes it to election, because that's still over a year away. Man, that's what scares me. A lot can happen in the next year.
I heard an analyst talking the other night, and they was talking, the FBI was talking, and they was saying it's no longer possible, but now it has reached a level of probable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Come the next election,
yeah,
we're going to see bloodshed. We're going to see uprisings. We're going to see problems.
And will there even be another election? Will they actually have something happen before where they'll keep the government, the president, what's in there now?
As far as I'm concerned, we're lame right now. We're lame.
We are.
We're wounded and lame. And every time something happens, it's you remember the movie Gladiator?
Oh yeah.
You remember there towards the end, whenever he met the guy and the guy realized who the gladiator guy was, and he got to talking about how that whenever they captured his wife and his son, that his son squealed like a pig, and his wife mourned every time that they was ravaging her again and again and again. Well, that's what's happening right now with Mother Nature. We're being ravaged again and again and again, and eventually you hit enough columns, guess what's going to happen to the structure? It's going to crumble.
We're there. I mean, it's just a dog eat dog.
Let me ask you this, because of you fixing to fold up shop here in the next couple of weeks, have you considered bankruptcy? Have you ever filed for bankruptcy? I had to file for bankruptcy one time, and I hated it. I absolutely hated to do it because I've always been honest. I've always wanted to be uppity up.
I'm not in that bad. All I'm going to do is just put my stuff in, go to work somewhere. That's my plan.
Well, you at 55, you know good and well age discrimination is going to be a factor.
Why was that?
Age discrimination.
I've already got
You're no longer the pick of the litter no more.
You're not in the workforce though, are you?
No.
You're wrong. You don't know nothing about the work. You're wrong. They're hiring. I've already got a job. I'm going to work Monday. I'm just here for 2 more weeks.
Truck driver. Truck driving job.
No, I'm going to work at Tyson.
Okay.
I thought I got hired. Yeah. I was either going to go to work there, and then I got another job offer for FedEx day before yesterday. But I'm obligated. I'm going to go to Tyson. Yeah, I'm already starting there. Yeah.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, John. I don't know. You're totally 1,000% wrong. They don't want these young people now. People my age, 55, man. 5-6 years ago, I would have been at the bottom of the barrel. People look at me, but now that's who they're looking at it more.
Well, I knew that JB Hunt and truck driving industries like that was looking for more mature drivers because of them being more stable and being more, obligated to their performances.
Right. Yeah, I'm not looking for truck drivers. There is companies from top to bottom are starving for employees. You just have to be out there. Not saying you don't know, but there are people starving for help. I've never seen people looking for employees. It blows my mind. Because at Tyson, they are like at 65%, 70% staffed. And she said they have people that sleeps out there in their cars making $25 an hour. They said, but they're so understaffed, they can't actually, they're not running their goods. She said, all of them are good workers. She said, we're not going to run them off the property. The jobs are everywhere, man. I've never seen it.
I'm going to go in there in a minute. I'm going to look for some stuff.
How y'all doing today?
He's always been an Alabama fan, hadn't he? Hadn't he? I said he's always been an Alabama fan, hadn't he?
I believe so.
You his buddy?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
How long have you known him?
About 3 or 4 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just met him not too long ago.
Yeah. Are you having hard times right now yourself?
Yes, sir, bro. I'm sleeping on concrete right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah. There's no Victory Baptist Church there.
Yeah.
Parking lot, yeah.
Are you originally from Dyersburg?
No, not originally. I'm from up north.
Okay, I'm from up north myself.
A town called Elgin, Illinois.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Called Elgin Classical Watches.
Right. How long you been down in the South?
Since I was 14.
Since you was 14. So this is home now.
Yeah. Well, I'm fixing to head out. Out now, but I don't know where I'm going, but I'm heading out. Time to go, man. I ain't got no more reason to be here, Mom,
Well, you know where most people goes in the wintertime?
Where's that? Florida?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That way they don't have to worry about freezing to death.
Yeah.
St. Augustine. I've lived in St. Augustine now 3 different times in my life, and I've never seen so many homeless people come to St. Augustine. And man, do they ever have homeless life centers everywhere.
Really?
Uh-huh.
St. Augustine, Florida.
St. Augustine, Florida. It's a beautiful place. I lived there for about a year. I lived on an island called Anastasia Island, and Anastasia Island saved my life, man.
Really? It's nice down there?
It is beautiful. It is one of the most. It is one of the most elaborate towns that basically still being run. 60 type music. It's got Ripley's Believe It or Not down there. It's got that Spanish fort down there.
Yeah.
Actually, St. Augustine was
First class, man.
St. Augustine was the first established town
In the country.
above and beyond Plymouth Rock,
Is that right?
where supposedly Columbus landed up there. St. Augustine is one of the oldest cities in America.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And that's just south of Jacksonville, maybe about an hour drive,
Really?
hour and a half drive.
So they help you get housing there if you got a truck coming in. They help you get housing.
I don't know about all that now, brother. I mean, I ain't going to mislead you and tell you that, about all the formalities or the particulars, but I'm just saying that they usually launch down that way along about this time of the year in St. Augustine because of the weather being like it is.
Heading down now. Well, I'll keep that in consideration. I appreciate that, bro.
Yep. Oh, me. This guy here is fixing to have to close up shop. And you walk through this mall and probably 90% of it's shut down. They don't have but 2 or 3 stores going. It's like Citco, GNC, jewelry store over there, some sort of a female clothing store. And I'm like that guy. I can remember whenever this thing was booming. But nowadays everybody buys stuff online. They don't want to get and mix and mingle. They don't want to go to places and pick out their items. They just pick it out on the phone or wherever and go through Amazon or whatever and have it brought to them. We definitely living in uncertain, different times, that's for sure. We're evolving. My scary thought is this: we're evolving, but what are we evolving to? And what we're evolving to, is it going to be better than what we already had? Or is it going to be the same? Or is it even going to be worse? Something to think about, that's for sure. Something to think about. Good luck to all of us. Just give you an idea about what I'm talking about. This store right here, it's closed. That building right there is closed. That building right there is closed. It used to be JCPenney. There's another building right there, it's closed. That one's closed. Citco's open. There's your clothing store right there. There's a GNC store all around the corner. But all in all, this mall, Dyceburg Mall, it's not dying. It's already dead. And we have social media to thank for that. It will be the ruin to us all if we don't wake up to what is happening and occurring in our lives. It will be the ruin to us all. Unbelievable. The only thing going to be able to save us is God. Just like Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son, said, the only thing going to save this planet and save us on the planet is God.